tēnā tātou. Tēnā tātou, ko ui mai nei I runga I tēnei kaupapa, ko wakapiri nei, ko wakatata nei a tātou I tēnei ko. Nō reira, ka tingatake rā tātou kōrero te karakia, te aere pai atu rā I ngā kōrero I ngā wānanga I te pōnei. Nō reira, ko I ringa nuku, ko I ringa rangi, ko ringa te kōrero o te pō, ko ringa te wānanga pai I re tia nei a tātou I tēnei ko. Ko ringa te tau, ko ringa taketake ki te waiau, ki te mārama, e rongo we o kiri aku I kirunga turu oka maua kia tīna, ie, tai. Tēnei anō rā, hini atu rā ki o koutou, koutou te whānau ko tiri nei, ko tata nei tēnei pō. Ko I te kānui iti, e pai tonu, hei te kapo I te kiriata, ka tai ka tuku atu rā ki ngā wānau kia mātakitaki, kia tuku anō rā I o rātou nei o kā. Timi I anō rā ki o tātou nei kai kōrero o te pōnei, Gina, ngā ina, tēnei timi I atu rā kia kōrero mō kōrero nei autu tanga o tēnei kaupapa waka I rongo tātou nei taongo o te moana. Ko koe anō rā Cameron, tēnei kami I atu rā kia atu e moko tautoko mai. So welcome Whanau to our first Wānanga, online Wānanga for our Tohoroa kaupapa. Very important kaupapa for us. I won't delve into it too much because Gina and Ngā Ina will facilitate this conversation for us tonight. But from a Turunango Ngāti Mutunga perspective, it's a very important kaupapa for us. Especially in the event where we do have strandings that happen along our coastline. So you'll hear a little bit about that throughout tonight's kōrero and the opportunity to be able to feed in to the up and coming wānanga that are already been planned. So you would have seen the pānui that come out via email and the pānui via Facebook as well. This is the first of 3 wānanga that have been planned. We have our online wānanga tonight, and we also have our two in-person wānanga that will be happening at the park. For us, one of the outcomes of they and our facilitators will talk about it no doubt is the ability for us to have a tikanga, have a protocol that we have in place should there be any stranding, should there be any mortality along our coastline. And to be able to have our whānau to provide feedback, to provide input into what should happen when these situations arise is really important for us. And to ensure that we've really considered all the tikanga aspects from a whānau and our iwi perspective as well. So with that, I'll pass on to one of our kaitiaki and one of our facilitators, Gina Blackburn, to further on. Kia ora, Gina.
Kia ora, Mitch. No mai haere mai te whānau. We, like Mitch said, are really excited to bring this kaupapa to you all, to kōrero, to Wānanga about, and most importantly, to develop a plan moving forward for us as uri of Ngāti Mutunga. So before we get into our mahi for the evening, I thought we'd just go over what to expect from this session. So today is the first of a series of 3, as Mitch said, and our presenters this evening. So we have Ngāhina Kappa, who is a tōtaiao for Te Kāui o Taranaki Iwi, as well as just about to become the new operations manager for the Taranaki Maunga project. We have JC Tiffany Thomas here as well to talk about her mātauranga with regards to hauhake. And then we have Cameron Hunt here from the Department of Conservation to talk through what the life cycle of our marine mammals looks like for us in Taranaki and to share some of his mātauranga as well. Just in terms of some housekeeping, can everyone make sure that you keep your microphone on mute unless you would like to ask a question, and in that case use the raise hand function, and we will make sure that we give you the opportunity to be able to share kōrero and ask questions, and feel free to use the chat for any questions and also to kōrero and to catch up with whānau if you haven't seen them for a little while. So yeah. So housekeeping all done. So we've gone through our introduction kōrero and talking about why we are developing this plan. And just to give you a little bit of background as well, we'll then head into the life cycle of marine mammals. So that's where Cameron will come in and start discussing those kaupapa. And then we're going to look at what other iwi are practicing. So that's when JC and Ngāhina are going to come in and have a kōrero about the mahi that they do. From there, we're going to move into what are our uri aspirations for this plan. We want you to share your whakaaro with us about your experiences and your knowledge in this area. And then we'll also start looking at some of the pātai that have come through as well. So if we can't answer them tonight, we'll find answers and we'll get back to you and let you know what the answers are. We'll also go over the next steps, which are those follow-up wānanga that are planned to be in person, and then it'll be Wā Whakamutunga. So we're hoping to have everything done for you this evening in about an hour. But feel free, grab a cup of tea, make yourself comfortable, and I hope you gain from this as much as what we're hoping to gain from you coming in and attending. So I think where we can start is just talking about whale strandings. So whale strandings happen when they become stranded on the shore or shallow waters and they're unable to swim back out to the sea. And this has been observed throughout history and continues to be a major concern for conservationists today. And as uri of Ngāti Mutunga, it's important that we realise that New Zealand has one of the highest stranding rates in the world, with an average of around 300 whales and dolphins stranding each year. And most of the time, only 1 or 2 animals become stranded, but sometimes you can have hundreds of animals stuck on the beach. That's a mass stranding, and the biggest one ever actually happened on the Chathams in Whanau, with over 1,000 pilot whales stranding in about 1918. So not something we want to see happen again, but something we want to be prepared for just in case it does. So it's not uncommon for strandings to happen with whales and dolphins, and there can be lots of different reasons about why they strand themselves. It can include illness, injury, navigational errors, social behaviour, and environmental factors like weather conditions, changes in water temperature, and that kind of thing. So some of the most common whales that we have beached themselves here in Taranaki include the pygmy sperm whale. So that's what they look like there. We've had one of those wash up in Urenui. They're quite a small species of toothed whale, and they're known to frequent the shallow waters, and it's been known to strand itself in Taranaki. We also get pilot whales. So pilot whales are a type of toothed whale as well, and they can get quite big. So they can get up to about 6 meters in length, and they're very social and known to strand themselves in large groups. So quite often when you hear about whale strandings, if it's pilot whales, they're usually in big groups of them. They all come in together as a big whānau. Then we've got orca whales. So they're not as common as some of the other species coming in. But they have been known to strand themselves in Taranaki on occasion, and they do frequent our waters. And then we've also got beaked whales. So beaked whales are a type of toothed whale, and they're known for their deep diving activities. So they have been known to strand themselves in Taranaki as well, although it's really, really rare. So why is it important that we do this mahi? So whales are really significant for us as Māori and as uri. They're our messengers from the atua, and they've got a really important role to play in the spiritual and physical well-being of the taiao. When a whale strands itself, it's a sign that there's an imbalance in the taiao. And in the past, we'd often hold karakia to honour the whale sacrifice and ask for forgiveness for any harm that may have been caused to that tupuna. And these things were a way for us to acknowledge how important that whale is as a tupuna, and also showing respect for its life. So today we work really closely with the Department of Conservation, and we help to manage and protect our whales and other marine animals. And in cases of strandings, we work together to ensure the safety and well-being of our tupuna, as well as investigating the cause of the stranding. So getting things like tests and samples done to see if there was any illness or something that we could have helped put in place to prevent it happening in the first place. So whale strandings, they're really complex and they really require a multifaceted approach. And by leading this mahi with Ngāti Mutunga mā tauranga, we want to gain a better understanding of the importance of whales in our natural world and work together to protect them for our future generations and for our mokopuna. So how we respond, how we protect, and how we honour our tupuna who return to us, we're going to go in depth on that tonight with our experts in the room. So I'm going to hand it over to Cameron. Cameron comes to us from DOC, and he's got a few bits and pieces to share about the life cycle of whales. Cameron.
Kia ora koutou, called Cameron Hunt, Toka Ingoa. I'm the, can you guys hear me? Yeah, I'm the senior ranger in the marine team for Department of Conservation based in New Plymouth. So I guess, yeah, just sort of building on what's been covered, we have a huge variety of different marine mammals traveling up and down our coast, some that are resident, and then we've also got the migratory whales traveling all the way down to Antarctica, like the humpbacks. And then they feed over the Antarctic summer, and then travel all the way back up into the Pacific to give birth. So life cycle wise, they breed, I guess, just like we do. Mum carries normally one calf. And then we will often see mum and calf traveling up and down our coast, especially through our summer. Pilot whales for taranaki. The more recent stranding was probably a sick or injured calf that beached, and then mum and father also came up on the beach. With our toothed whales, so I was just out last night, just down the south coast. So what we believe is we're still got to get a formal ID, but it's a strap-toothed beaked whale. Again, very rare. So that came ashore just south of Oyo Pa. And again, so we tap into our experts. Even myself, I'm not great at identifying those toothed, the beaked whales, because they are very rare. So in terms of their life cycle, we really don't know a lot about the toothed whales. We know there's sort of 11 different species that frequent our waters. We know they're deep divers, they're very rarely seen. In terms of population abundance, their breeding habits, even what they're eating, we know very little of. And that's where we like, I guess, once something does come ashore, being able to get those samples where we can start understanding diet, genetics, where we can start looking at how they fuck up a back. We can understand, the size of the population. Then we've got right through to our larger whales, so blue whales, southern right whales, traveling up and down our coast. And again, life cycle wise, we're not always sure on how old they are, what's causing them to strand. And that's where we really tap into the University of Auckland and Massey University to help with that understanding of why these beings are turning up on our beaches. And I guess it's, there we go. So in terms of whales, traveling up through Cook Strait and then up our southern coast as they travel north, it is really, really common occurrence for sightings and strandings all around the North Island. And I guess it is, I know I don't want to talk for too long, but I think it would be really important for Department of Conservation. I think we're really looking to change the way we've dealt with whale strandings. I think in the past it's probably been very, I guess, dock focused, and that tikanga hasn't always necessarily been acknowledged. Where we want to be now is DOC's role is to, I guess, our main role is to ensure that everything's done safely. So public safety at a stranding, and then it's working with you to enable your tikanga, your process, to happen in whatever the situation is and whatever whale is on the beach. specific questions on anything?
It doesn't sound like we've got any questions for Cameron. Oh, we've got one. How far out from the coast are those bigger whales like the blue whales when they're migrating?
Yes, good question. So the sighting we had last week was of a large whale, so probably a southern right whale, but that was out by the wave recorder buoy just off Port Taranaki. So that's only a couple of miles offshore. Others, the blues and the humpbacks are more likely to be out in the deeper water. So once you get sort of beyond 100 meters, but in saying that, they can be right in close in 30, 40 meters of water. But yeah, for the bigger whales, more likely to be kind of beyond 10 miles, nautical miles offshore.
How common is it in Ngāti Mutunga for us to have whales wash in and strand themselves?
So I'll send it out if we haven't already. We've got the historical records for the whole Taranaki coast from sort of as far back. When you kind of look at historically, the little dots are kind of evenly spread across everyone's rohi. I was going to say, you don't tend to get as many strandings in recent times. No, you've had the pygmy sperm whale. Of recent times, they've been mokau. We've had another pygmy sperm whale and a Gray's beaked whale stranded almost exactly the same spot. So just about 200 meters south of the Seaview motor camp, just north of the town. And then the others have been further south around the coast. But yeah, it could happen anytime, and it could be one small whale, or it could be one very large whale, or it could be several. And again, it could be a live stranding. So we've had a couple of instances where we've been able to successfully refloat whales and get them back out to sea. So yeah, every situation. It's really hard to have an exact answer for every situation as to what might happen. Yeah.
We've just had another question come in, and I think it might be a good one to add to our kōrero at the end of this wānanga, just asking who has say over the bones of the whale. So from a doc perspective, is there a statutory requirement, or is it something that we as iwi and uri are able to determine?
So that's absolutely for you guys to determine. So that's part of your tikanga. I guess the whales themselves, in terms of legislation, it falls under the Marine Mammals Act that DOC administers. But within that, we recognise US iwi that you have a cultural interest in those and may want to keep the bones, teeth.
Yes, sir. They lock down the back end part. Dispatches the deputies are responding.
Who have we got? Hang on. You should be good to go, Cameron.
Yeah. So we're that's I guess what we want to assist you with is cultural harvest of the whale if that's appropriate. Burial, all those kind of bits that can come into play, and sort of just having a plan so that we understand what your aspirations are and how you'd like to deal with a stranding.
Cool. And we've got another question from Alison. Any research that the marine heat wave or climate change is or could impact on stranding?
There's, in terms of the marine heat wave, it's a good question. So far this year, we've seemed to have had less strandings than we have in the past couple of years. So I'm not sure, no one in DOC is specifically looking at that. That would probably be a question we could fire to University of Auckland and their team, who are probably looking into that in a lot more detail.
Cool. Okay, any more partai for Cameron, and then we'll introduce JC.
Kia ora, Cameron. Just a this is Mitchell here. Just a quick question. I see that we've got Hone Tibble joined us today. Hone works with Whare Cody, Ngāti Mutunga ki Whare Cody over at the Chatham Islands, and I know that there's been some strandings there happening as well. Just a question in terms of, sorry, that's the background noise. Just in terms of co-designing protocol or approaches to stranding, is that something that DOC has done or DOC does?
Yes, absolutely. So we've worked with Ngāti Ruanui, and we've got quite a comprehensive, I guess, stranding plan with them. So we've looked, I guess, sort of at all aspects of, you know, a live stranding versus a deceased stranding, how cultural materials might be accessed, used, you know, key contacts, health and safety issues, you know, right down to the level of, you know, like if you know, where are we going to bury, if burial is appropriate, just making sure that, you know, if a lot of the time these whales are pretty big, if we're going to bury them, you need a big hole that we don't end up putting a digger in a path site or through a gas line or so yeah, and absolutely would want to co-design it with you to suit your tikanga. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Cameron, for sharing the life cycle of whales around the Taranaki coast. I'd like to introduce everyone to JC Tiffany Thomas. She has been practicing this mahi for a long time and is very knowledgeable in the space of how hapu and iwi can work alongside DOC to exercise our mātauranga and our tikanga. So kia ora, JC.
Kia ora tātou, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, ka pai. There's a little bit of a lag on my end, but I'll push through. Aroha mai for my video or lack of video. I'm at another Wānanga at the moment and just waiting for everyone to clear up behind me. So when they do, I'll pop my video on. Okay, just really quickly, e te taho tōku mama he uri o hau no Ngāti Hine, ara no te whānau tipene me te whānau hinare. I te taho o tōku pāpā, ko au te tahi iti o Ngāti Kahununu no te whānau tāmati me te whānau nuku. Ko JC Tiffany Thomas tōku ingoa e mihi atu ana ki a koutou katoa. Kia ora! I'm really, really happy to be here, and thanks for the invite. We yes, Jingo, how long ago was it? We came down and supported you guys, a couple of hapu with your tohora, with your taonga, with your big blue whale. It was an experience and a half. I mean, yes, I've been doing this for me personally, since 2017, and since my first whale in 2017, I've done 57 now. That is deceased strandings. Can you guys hear me? Just checking that the lag isn't too laggy. Okay,
yep.
Kapai. Yeah, so I previous marine tech advisor, actually on call at the moment, so I still contract to DOC. I was a community/marine ranger in Wanganui for a year in 2019. Before that, in 2018, I was the RMA ranger at DOC Whangarei. I went to Wanganui for a year, came back to Whangarei in 2020 as the RMA ranger, as well as an on-call marine tech advisor, which I still am, but currently dropped my day-to-day at DOC and am running one of our Cody Order kaupapa, which is one of our jobs for nature iwi collabs up here in Te Tai Tokero. And so the hauhake process, so we not only awhi communities, hapu and iwi with deceased whales, but also live strandings. But in this context, I'll unpack the hauhake process. I do have a presentation that we usually share at this stage, but we can do that at the next one. When I'm a little bit more prepared. So the main aim anyway of our hauhake process is to maintain mātauranga Māori within the marine space. After having been, I wouldn't say lost, but just not actively revived these days. Although I must say in the last 10 years, it seems to be, we've come a long way in terms of our relationship with not only Te Pāpātawhai, but our councils and other interested stakeholders in terms of strandings. As I mentioned, the whole aim is to support mana whenua in building capacity and capabilities within the marine space, and also to honour the tohora, carrying on the tohora's whakapapa through toi whakairo, waiata, taku, all of the beautiful things that come from strandings. Cap would know, the whanaungatanga that is built, the whakawhanaungatanga within each stranding operation. It's just, you have to experience it yourself to really understand it. What I'll do tonight is, because I can't stay on for the whole Zooey, unfortunately, but what I'm going to do is just go through our process, and if anyone has any pātai, then feel free to sing out. So I belong to Manu Taupunga, so I look after our operations. Manu Taupunga is our mahi tohora rōpū. Our rōpū have been active in this space for 25, 30 years formally. Our rōpū was revived really and kick-started by Hori Parata from Ngāti Wai, who is rangatira in this space for all of us. And so about 30 years ago, when the separate departments like Ministry of Fisheries, Lands and Surveys were looking after strandings or the coastline there, our taonga, our tohora was stranding, and they were burying them above the high tide mark in our sand dunes where a lot of our core iwi were. And so this wasn't good enough for our kaumātua Ngāti Wai. At that time, they put their foot down and said no more. So they physically blocked off all access to the coastlines within Ngāti Wai. And they looked after and honoured their tohora from then on. Fast forward 20 years, and with the then Department of Conservation working alongside them, because they realised that, not only are they, exercising their kaitiakitanga, their mana motuhake, tino rangatiratanga, they're actually doing a really good job at removing the biohazard from the beach, which is one of the main reasons DOC bury whales, because again, we're dealing with a decomposing marine mammal, and marine mammals are prone to the same social illnesses as us because we're mammals too. And so the biohazard is a big deal. And so then from that developed the Ngāti Wai Protocol, which is an exception to the Marine Mammals Protection Act. And hearing the kōrero so far, and actually during our time down in Taranaki with the whānau, with you guys, we mentioned that it doesn't stop on the beach. So not only do we, mahi together and support you in building your capabilities in the stranding space, but we also support you obtaining the permit to not only hold bone and teeth and oils and all that sort of stuff. It's bigger than that. It's about your local doc office or your district, or basically nationally, because our protocol is a national protocol. It's about supporting you to obtain your own protocol, not only own permit. A permit is a lesser document that we support you obtaining, but the Ngāti Wai Protocol is an exception to the Marine Mammals Protection Act, pursuant to sections 4, 5, 6 and 7. And so the big aim is to support every hapu or iwi. Sometimes it's actually whānau, because not everyone is interested in the hauhake process. I mean, it is a lot to wrap your head around if you haven't had any experience in this space. So sometimes we work on a whānau basis. So that part of the mahi, like after the stranding has happened, the operation has happened, the administrative part of the mahi continues. And so, like what we're doing tonight, health and safety is huge. There's a number of things that go into the protocol. Just to wind it back a little bit, the first thing we do is we get a call from someone who is reaching out to us, to awhi them or to support them when they have a stranding. We don't call ahead and, taka here, because again, we really respect iwi-specific tikanga or hapu-specific tikanga. It's not for us to say, oh, you've got a whale, let's go and cut it up together. We have to wait for the karanga, because every rohe has their different tikanga, as we've heard already. And so when we get the karanga to come and support or come and advise, or even if it's over the phone, we usually pack our gear so that we can deploy ready to support the hapu or iwi or mana whenua of that rohe of which the taonga has stranded on. And the first thing we do is Wānanga, because Wānanga is so important, because at the end of the day, a lot of like I said, whānau don't know what they don't know. And so all we do is provide options so that when you have a stranding, all we do is provide options so that when you have a stranding, that is available to you. So sometimes Wānanga takes 2 to 3 days, because we have to be inclusive, and a lot of hapu and iwi want to make sure that everyone is on the same page within their hapu, even if there's differing views. This is where that all gets sorted in the Wānanga space, where we can support everyone in coming to a decision. In that Wānanga space, we go through health and safety. Can I try and share screen? Okay, hang on a sec. Might be a little bit better. I'll just jump into my presentation and I'll share screen so I can give you guys some visuals. I am looking at an older version of our presentation, but we'll just do it in a sec. Okay, can you guys all see that? Okay. Please let me know if it's a bit laggy. Ooh. Aroha mai. Anyway, I'll just, so that I'm not using too much network, I will just stay on this for now. Can you guys see that? Kapai.
Yeah, it's coming up fine. Goodbye.
Kapai. Yep, so I've gone through the history. Aroha mai, everyone at the marae is on the Wi-Fi. Okay, I'll just go put you down. Yeah, so as I mentioned, you know, when we Wānanga, we go through health and safety, because health and safety is huge for us. As I mentioned, we are, you know, essentially working with decomposing marine mammals that sometimes have been sitting on the coast for, you know, weeks at a time, and yeah, biologically it's not something that you want to get in your system. So we have a real stringent health and safety protocol within our protocol, and these are all the things that you will you will put into your protocol as well. Our crew have done over 500 whales in the last couple of decades, and no one has been seriously injured because of our real strict health and safety protocol. When you get down to the, also in the Wānanga space, you know, we're talking about all the different roles within the whole kaupapa. You have cutters who are exactly what that says, cutting up the whale. A lot of the time we have more of our experienced whānau on doing that role, because, you know, it is quite demanding. If you've got whānau who are you know, previous knife hands or worked at the works, you know, they're perfect for that. Pullers, they pull they support the cutter, they pull the blubber away, and they pull the blubber back to make it easier for the cutter. We have medics. Medics are really important. So I train our medics. And again, we have a core group of 10 within our main group, and at Strandings during operations we divide ourselves up and support mana whenua, because we don't come there to just do the mahi ourselves completely, but we do. I mean, if there's no like if the capacity within a hapu or isn't there, or if there's, you know, a big event somewhere else, we do full strandings ourselves, because, you know, that's what we usually do. But ideally in the Wānanga space, we identify the different roles, and whānau that are interested in it, in a particular role, will put their hand up. And so we determine all of that before we even get down to the beach or go down to the beach. We have our tech advisors. So for me, I have, you know, 1 foot on I wouldn't even say the 1 foot on either side. We've pretty much busted down the fence, and, you know, we're all working together, both culturally and technically, for the betterment of our taonga species. Again, logistics and operations, you have to have 1 or 2 people managing the whole scene. Usually that's me from our crew for our operation down there. And Yordle here, you know, that was Cap, he was on the ball, had just, managing the whole scene, which was great. Just keeping an eye on the bigger picture, and then support staff, because everyone in the pit, depending on how big the whale is, we need support people that either you know, feed our people that are in the immediate pit, and the immediate pit is the immediate area where the whale is being worked on, and we usually have this taped off, barriered off, and no one but cutters and pullers, cutters, and your knife sharpeners, because knife sharpeners are really important to have 1 or 2 of those dotted around. No one else but them and your medics are allowed in there, because again, you don't want to carry that biohazard in and out of the immediate pit. And so, health and safety is huge. Once we've identified those different roles, we make a plan to start the mahi. I mean, we've been to some whānau where it's been 50-50. No, don't want to go ahead with the hauhake process. You know, we all see our tohora or our parawa as our tupuna, you know, that are and some of our whānau that we've worked with, can't bear to cut up our tupuna, and that's okay. Like, we understand that completely. And so again, we don't go there with preconceived ideas to tell you what to do. It's just to provide options. We have our structure in this presentation too, because it's really important to see what you would aim for. So our taumata, or our kahui kaumātua, they uphold the mana and integrity of the mahi that we do. And although, all of us as kaitiaki on whatever level and whatever role, we all, do our mahi as honourable as possible. We really respect and encourage everyone who are looking to start their own, whale stranding crew, or, develop their own protocol, to start thinking about who would be on your taumata. Because again, we have those that are a wealth of knowledge in different aspects. For us, we have, one of our rangatira hori, who is, rangatira in terms of our tohora, but also our kauri. And for us in the north, our kauri is one of our culturally significant taonga species. It's a rākau rangatira to us, rākau matua. And then we have other whānau who are experts, like in maramataka or toi whakairo, or lots of different things that are all included in our mahi. And so once we make a plan to start the mahi, we head down to the beach, and wherever that may be. This first image on the left is a humpback whale that's stranded in Bailey's Beach off the Kaipara coast, which is off the coast of Dargaville. There were 2 of them that stranded at that time. And the image on the right is one of the sperm whales that stranded in Taranaki in at Kaupokunui there. And yeah, those were eventually 13 sperm whales that we worked on in the end, 12 initially, and then Ngāti Ruanui found there the 13th sperm whale. And so we worked with the Ngāti Ruanui as well. And so we supported them after working with Ngāti Tū, Ngāti Haua, and then Ngāti Ruanui. We supported each of those groups to obtain their protocol as well for their iwi or their hapu. And so what has already been mentioned, tikanga. Tikanga is everything down on the beach, because again, every rohe is different, every hapu can be different, every iwi, of course. And one of the main things that we mention in the Wānanga period is the naming of your tohora. And because this is really, really important, because the naming of your tohora, your taonga that's stranded, carries on through the whakapapa of every not only piece, because again, it's not about the resources. It's not only about the resources. It's about maintaining mātauranga Māori in this space. But the naming is really, really important, because you're sending the tohora off with dignity, as well as carrying on its whakapapa through varying forms. Katakia, like everything, katakia happens when we get down to the beach before the mahi starts, safeguards us, provides safe passage for the mahi rangatira that is about to happen. The eye is really, really important. So the eye is cut out for a few reasons. One being it's a way, it's like a spiritual doorway or window, for the tohora to see how the tohora is being honoured. Not only that, usually someone from your hapu or your iwi is chosen, it's not always an up and coming rangatahi, but a lot of the time an up and coming rangatahi is chosen to do that role, do that little big job. And it's just a way of giving back, and directly a direct form of nutrient recycling as well. So a lot of the time you're throwing the eye back in, and 9 times out of 10 it ends up back on the coast or around the whale, but the birds go in for it as well. But it's really, really important, that process. it's also an opportunity for wahine to karanga, or, you know, waiata, or even continue carrying out karakia at that stage. But again, I'll reiterate, it is different in every rohe, like actually everyone has done this within our protocol. Again, it's only a guide, but yeah, I mean, we can adapt it because this is just a general guide for all hapu and iwi to adapt to their own iwi specific tikanga or hapu specific tikanga. So yeah, so science and research. Now, a lot of our whānau are really put off being involved in science and research because of the lack of trust from not being looked after in the past. And so I know from working within DOC myself, a lot of whānau have decided to carry out or allow DOC staff to carry out sampling and biopsies and whatnot. But one of my I wouldn't say, I make it my mission anyway. I make it my mission to support whānau within, from the area, from the rohe, from the hapu, to actually get into it too. And so a lot of the time, 1 or 2 or even 3 people will come and shadow and be taught how to take samples, how to perform the biopsies, and learn along the way, because you don't have to be a marine specific person like myself or like our mete online here to take samples. Sometimes, even though it is ideal, sometimes in reality, not the marine ranger isn't always in the office. And so sometimes, you know, you send the rec rangers down or other people down to take samples. And so why can't our own look after our own? And so, yeah, that's one of my roles on the beach, is to guide whānau in the sample taking and performing the biopsies. But performing biopsies isn't just done all at once. You know, you're working alongside the actual hauhaki process. So when the tōhora is being opened, you're looking out for things that will indicate, you know, causes of death. And these are just visual things. Obviously, we send samples away and whatnot. I can't see if you guys are asking any partai, so please feel free to chime in verbally, please. So this whale here that I took a sample from the top of the vertebrae of, this is Ngāti Ruanui's sperm whale. That was the 13th whale. And so this one we actually packed up and went home after working with Ngāti Tū and Ngāti Haua, finishing off the 12 sperm whales, because that's all we knew of. And then a few days after we got home, we got the call from Debbie that they had in fact found a 13th whale that had gone up the river mouth a little bit more. So back we came. So we encourage science and research, but as long as there is a promise that mana whenua get that data back, you know, that because we're huge on data sovereignty as well, and we're very big on supporting whānau to upskill and build capacity and capabilities within the science and research phase too, because there's always 1 or 2 or 3 or, you know, several that are interested in that space as well. And so where we want to be moving is to be not only collecting samples ourselves, but also analysing those samples in the future. And so that's another bigger picture type mahi to be thinking of, is, you know, developing your own labs and actually in the meantime just building on those relationships with Te Papa or AUT or, you know, Wild Basin and Palmerston North, and all of those things. So again, the tōhora is not touched until karakia has been performed. And a lot of time too, in areas where whānau haven't got knowledge of the hauhaki process, DOC will dominate, because there's no one showing an interest or making it known that they have an interest in this space. So where there isn't any pushback, Doc will dominate in that space. But Doc, you know, in terms of our te tiriti obligations, they have, they're obligated to, you know, give effect to numerous things that allow us to exercise our, well, tino rangatira, basically. And so before any samples are taken of any whale, mana whenua should be notified absolutely beforehand, before the whale is touched, really, unless it's unless there is a imminent threat to something for Doc to touch it beforehand. Tangata whenua or mana whenua should always be notified first. But it's really, really important on that note to keep your key contacts with Doc, you know, updated as well, because a lot of the time, you know, you might have someone who's not as active in the hapu or iwi space that gives the, you know, the token tick or the token okay, yep, you know, go and take those samples. But so maintaining those relationships with our departments like Te Papa Te Whai is really, really important. Yeah, and so I'll just quickly go through the rest of my presentation and then make time for pārtai, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So after the samples are collected, the first cut is made, and the first cut is usually made along the top of the vertebrae, depending on how the and which way the whale is positioned. And this first cut is really important because that relieves the pressure. Once the first cut is made, blubber is stripped down from the side into manageable squares. So as you can see there, we often work in really, really differing terrains. Yeah, all of those pictures actually come from the South Taranaki coast. But as you can see here, the thickness of the blubber of this male, because they were all boys. There were 13 boys that belonged to a bachelor pod. But the thickness of their blubber is massive. There was no reason for them to strand disease or illness wise. But yeah, so once the first cut is made, the strips of blubber are taken down. After that, the meat or the tissue, I should say, the muscle tissue is taken off the same way. Yeah, again, it's something that you really have to experience for yourself. Not that we want strandings to happen, touch wood, but if they do happen, this is just an option. A lot of the time too, like in the Wānanga phase, in the planning phase, there are lots of things to consider, i.e. gear, how we're going to get it down there. We have a lot of gear alone within our crew. We have our big medic first aid box. We have our, you know, knife box, all of our gear, lots of gear, but hooks. But as you can see, you have to kind of get really innovative with your approach, especially if whales have stranded in really hard to reach areas. So sometimes it's decided only the jaws to be taken, and then, you know, make strategic cuts so that whānau can go down in the weeks and months following and pick up the bones. Yeah, and so on the bone topic, burying of the bones is different for every iwi or hapu, because some, you know, have dedicated tohora burial areas along the coastline, and then others, because the dune environment is so dynamic, sometimes it's decided to bring them inland, and so often we'll truck in some sand from that area, because the sand has all the coast or the marine microorganisms that help break down the tissue and whatnot. And then, yeah, bones are buried, and often we leave them for a year or 2 years, a lot of the time at the most, because then the bone starts to degrade, depending on what you want to use it for. It's really important to not leave them in too long. And a lot of the time too, if it's a full whale skeleton, we depending on what the hapu or mana whenua, I should say, want to do with it, that determines how we perform the deboning. Because if you want to reconstruct it like a dinosaur in one of your cultural spaces or at your marae, we don't go right down to the bone, because when the whale is freshly stranded, the bone is what we call green bone, and so it's really, really soft and can be nicked, and it just aids in the further degradation of the bones later on down the track. And so we have lots of uses for the everything we get from our tohora. And again, I will stress, it's not about the resources, it's literally about maintaining mātauranga Māori and honouring our tohora. But we do utilise the resources to raise awareness in the marine space, not only culturally, but ecologically, biologically. The state of our environment at the moment is, shocking. And so getting out into our kura, starting from our kura, right through to Wānanga, all over the place, is really, really important. We have a full-size pilot whale that was part of a stranding back in 2006 that my parents worked on. In the top right photo there, and we're at school during Sea Week, just giving a presentation about the mahi. This is, as I mentioned, this is an older presentation, but we have a lot of additional uses. But generally, it's the bone. Blubber is rendered down for blubber oil, which can be used for varnish and all of that type of stuff. Blubber was originally used for lanterns back in the day. We use it on our taonga now because it preserves our taonga as well. Spermaceti is in the world of oils, top-notch oil. It is only found in the sperm whale and sperm whale's head, and so we're actually utilizing spermaceti at the moment and whale bone along with kānuka, which is kānuka is the rongoa to combat kauri dieback or kauri ora, so we're trying to manifest oranga as opposed to dieback. And so the spermaceti and the spermaceti acts as a carrier because it's such a thin oil and gets into all the nooks and crannies, and the bone acts as a binder to carry the kānuka. So kānuka actually makes the pathogen explode. So that's one of our exciting things that we've been working on for the last couple of years. Again, education and awareness, and we support science and research following the lead of mana whenua, just so that we can support you to understand your or our taonga species a little bit better. And so benefits, honouring the tohora, carrying on whakapapa, as I've already mentioned. The relationships that we've got with, not only the taranaki, hapu of taranaki or iwi, it's, we've mahi'd around the country, we've mahi'd in Mahia, Coromandel, the South Island, just everywhere that we've been invited. And so, the whanaungatanga externally is amazing, but also the whanaungatanga within each rohe is just, to mahi alongside, whānau that you may have or may not have necessarily gotten along with before. But it just brings everyone together. And not only that, just to be able to, exercise kaitiakitanga of our own taonga species as well. It's just a major plus. It's always really successful. And this mahi, provides or maintains relationships, or even sometimes creates relationships with our departments. So te papatawhai and whatnot. I know the taranaki whānau, at the time, I was working with Callum, Lily and Wayne, and also Gareth. The relationships built, have been just amazing. And so that's what you would aim for too, is to maintain those relationships there, so that we can work together, because I know that there's a lot of, whānau who, there's been a lot of hurt in the past, and I know we're still, especially our older generations, are really, you know, the trust hasn't been built back yet, but, you know, it's up to us to lead in these spaces and work together until we can fully, I wouldn't even say reclaim the space, but do what's best for our taonga species and our future generations as well. And lastly, raising awareness for conservation and environmental issues, marine issues, everything, like everything is connected. Ko te tai au, ko te tai au ko au. But yeah, that's me. If you have any pātai, please, please, please ask me. I'm so sorry to take up so much time.
He tupai, thank you so much, JC. That was amazing. And I'm sure everyone's taken away a taonga from what you've just shared with us tonight. I think the mahi you're doing with the spermaceti and the kanuka is amazing and inspiring. So very cool to hear about your mātauranga in that area. E te whānau, do we have any questions for JC? Oh, okay, te pai. From here, we're going to head down to Taranaki Iwi, to our whanaunga ngāhina, and he's going to share some of his kōrero about their experience with a parawa and tohora mahi that they've done there. So before he starts, I will just play a video for you all that sort of shares the story about what they've done and what their experience was like with that mahi. Can you all see that okay?
O te karua ko te inga o te I tupua kui a toora. Wa pari ki te tai wenua o Ngāti Tara, Ngāti ka umate, Ngāti Tamarongo, au mia, ngai wetenga, rātau ko Ngāti Manu, āno te iwi tonu, o Taranaki Iwi, utonu mai mo tēnei pūrongo. E toora ka pai ki tai wenua.
He mihi he tangi ki tō tātou tupuna kua pai nei, te tia ki iaia, te mihi ki iaia, te tangi tuarua ko ngā tikanga hei whakarite i iaia.
Ko te mea tuatahi I kimi mātou, I te mātauranga I roto I a mātou, ngā mea o te hau kāinga, ka tuku karanga, ka tuku roimata, mai runga I ngā paripari nei, te kitenga tuatahi atu, kia horohia te manaakitanga o a tātou tipuna, ki runga I aia.
E roi mata ngā ngarui wati mai nei, ki te ākau o Taranaki roe.
Koera te taha ki o tātou whanaunga o ngā ruahine, he pou mātauranga, te ata tohu mai, te ata takitaki I ngā mahi.
Our hapu came to Awhi, Manaki, Ngāti Kahumate, and the Taranaki whānui iwi. As 3 years ago, we had our own whales that we dealt with, and so we had a little bit of knowledge, but most of it come from Papahure, from Ngāti Wai, his teachings to us, so we come to Awhi, our whanaunga.
Ka wai o mā ngā ringa o a pai, te koa o Tangaroa, e manaaki.
I timata mātou te tēnei mea te hauhake, te tapa I tanga tuatahi, te karakia I te ata, kia tukua I tōna ingoa ki te hau, kia karangahia, kia Tangaroa hea tāna ingoa, ana ka tapahi atu hoki tāna karu, ai ko anō kia Tangaroa. Koenei e tahe o ngā kōrero I waihotia mā mātou e te tohungara no Ngāti Wai.
Ko teo, ko te tehi o ngā awa, ko tōna pūaha kei tuatu, no reira kia te whakaro mātou. Ka hara ngā tohu, ka hara ngā ōna kōrero kia mātou kia tātou nei, ngā uri o te maunga, I te mea he kuia aia, he tupuna kuia, he tawito, he tipua, he tawito, he atua, he hauna kōrero, kua haria mai ki runga i a tātou i tēnei wā.
E tō wakaaro nui no te apu a te ware uka uka, kua kau mai nei. Nau mai e te ua o tangaroa, aroha pō timpui, te reo te uru.
Kia ora koutou te Wānau, ko taranaki ko paua kai, ko kaitake te pune eke mai ai te tangata. Ko Ngāti Mutunga te iwi, ko kai tangata te hapu, mātaku hono ki oku tūpuna, ka hono au ki ngā iwi katoa o taranaki maunga, ko ngāhina kepa tōku ingoa, he kaimahi a hau mō te kāui o taranaki, he kaitiaki whenua. Kia ora whānau. Lovely to see everybody. Good to see everybody's faces in this awesome space. Just wanted to, firstly, I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in this space, but I've very much been honoured to be part of a couple of hauhake now that have been transformational, not only for myself, but for my whānau and for those that were a part of those hauhake. So I'm just really privileged and honoured to be here to share just a little bit of our story, our narrative. So firstly, I just want to acknowledge Ngāti Mutunga, our whānau, for creating this space for us to talk to our tipua, to talk to the potentiality of what the future may hold for us in this space. So yeah, just want to mihi to Gina, Mitch and Lani and the crew for creating this space. Just want to acknowledge our Wānanga JC and our Ngāti White Wānau up in the far north. Thank you so much for coming on tonight, JC. It's good to see you again, and just acknowledge your guys' leadership and guidance right across the mutu over many years, which has helped so many whānau, so many hapu recreate spaces of tupuna mahi. And it's brought about transformational change. So just cannot thank you guys enough for your leadership and guidance. Good to see you on there too, Cam, from Doc. Thank you. We're quite lucky here in Taranaki. Our relationship with our Te Papa Atapai whānau is actually very, very good in terms of this type of mahi. We're very fortunate in this space compared to what I hear in some other rohe. We're very lucky we've got an understanding department here in terms of the importance of having us as mana whenua leading these spaces. So just want to acknowledge you, Cam. And just while I got everyone, so a few acknowledgements. First, Ngāti Haua, Ngāti Tū, Ngāti Ruanui whānau, Ngāti Mutunga, Otaraua whānau, for your awhi and manaaki right throughout the whole process for our hauhake with Te Karuo ko Tio Tio. We're very blessed to have our own wise leaders in this space with Uncle Sid in them and Ngā Ruehine who've helped a lot in this space in Taranaki, so just want to acknowledge them too. And lastly, just want to acknowledge our tipua, Te Karuo ko Tio Tio, which was our tohora who came ashore at Opua in Taranaki iwi, down towards Opunake. She changed many lives, and I'll just give you a very basic introduction to that. And in our next Wānanga, we have our whole ope from Taranaki iwi coming up to Urenui to share our narrative, to share our story with everybody, kānohi ki te kānohi. So we have a presentation to share at the next Wānanga. But just for now, I'll just give you a real basic introduction. Te Karuo ko Tio Tio came ashore 18 months ago now. 18 months ago, and I was very blessed and fortunate to have been a part of a hauhake in Otaraua, Ngāti Rahiri country, a few years prior. So obviously when our tohora came ashore, I'd kind of already had a little bit of basic knowledge in terms of what was required to undertake this mahi tupuna. And so straight away got in touch with JC and the Manu Taupunga Wānau. Also got in touch with our Ngāti Haua, Ngāti Tū, Ngāti Ruanui whānau. And it was very quickly, just within a matter of days, we were meeting as whānau, as hapu, as community to talk about the next steps that needed to take place in terms of the safety and the care of our tipua. as I mentioned, the mahi that we undertook was transformational, and I really hope you can all make it to our next Wānanga, because the story, we haven't shared our story before, and it'll be the first time that we've ever shared our story as a collective, and it's a very powerful story. So really looking forward to sharing that. The whanaungatanga brought, it reinvigorated some of our hapu that were dormant, brought us all together, and now some of those hapu are starting to stand up and come together and collectivise. So the haputanga was amazing, whanaungatanga, and obviously we had a space where we could share in mahi that our tupuna would have experienced in you know, in many years gone before us. What have I got? With the help, the tikanga was a really important part. So before anything was undertaken, we were very lucky to have some of our whānau, our hohaia whānau, rātahi whānau down the coast to hold that tikanga space. From the time she came ashore was to ensure that she was looked after right from the time she arrived right till the day she was buried. And so 24-hour watch for a whole week. So we're very lucky that you know, to have the right people in place to ensure that that tikanga was followed all the way through. We had a nahi ka, we had a fire that was lit, and that went right through the whole process. Our tamariki, our rangatahi were part of keeping that fire burning at either end of the hauhake, either end of the beach, which was huge. So there were so many different elements, but yeah, like I said, we'll share that in our next Wānanga. We continue to meet monthly. The day she arrived was the 15th of October, and every month on the 15th, we meet down where she is laid to rest, on the headlands at Opua. And we have kaitahi, we have kōrero, we plan together on what the future looks like in terms of the messages that she brought us. So that's something that we continue to till today. And I suppose the biggest thing for us is there's just been it's been transformational in terms of, and a huge shift in terms of our understanding and importance of our care for tangaroa and our all the mammals that live within, you know, her space. Yeah, it's hard to really put it into words. So I won't carry on too much longer. We've got a pretty we met on Saturday, all of our whānau down at in Opunake, and we met and we're putting together a story to share for the first time at the next Wānanga. So I look forward to sharing that story with you all. But yeah, that's me, I think. Kia ora.
Kia ora ngāhina, thank you. Which leads us into our kōrero around what is our tikanga at Ngāti Mutunga? What do we have as our base blocks, our building blocks to what we want to develop in our plan? So within all of the different iwi plans that we've looked into, there were 5 really key elements that kept showing up in all these different places. So they're things that we can look to consider with our plan that we're wanting to put together. So things like katakia, so why are we doing it? Who is doing it? When are we doing it? Our whakawātea, so how we clear the area around the whale and remove the obstacles that might prevent it from returning to the ocean if it is coming to us still alive. That we are recognising that this whale is one of our taonga of the ocean, and we treat it with the utmost respect. And that's why we wānanga together, so that everyone comes to an agreement on how we look after our tupuna and what we do when they come to us. Our kaitiakitanga, so how we exercise that kaitiakitanga over our natural environment, and how do we take responsibility for protecting and preserving the whale and its habitat. So it's not just about the mammal itself, it's about the entire ecosystem that they're in and how we can make that better. And then also understanding that in not all cases is it a happy outcome where our tupuna can go back out to the moana and carry on. Sometimes we have to look into things about tangihanga and how we hold that for our taonga and the practices that we do, like hauhake, and all of those things that JC, Ngāhina and Cameron have all shared this evening. So from there, we want to hear from you guys. So what are your aspirations for this type of mahi what are your questions and your pātai? We've got one that's come in. So JC's answered it. Is rāhui part of the tikanga? Yes, a rāhui is definitely part of the tikanga. And that's something that comes in with our wānanga as well. So culturally, biologically, we want to make sure that we're doing the best by not only our tupuna, but by our tangata as well, so that everyone's safe and everyone goes home healthy to their whānau. So were there any other pātai, or is there anyone online that would like to share some kōrero about their experiences or what their aspirations are for us to work towards?
Kia ora tātou. I just wanted to chime in because I have to pop off now, but yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for inviting me into your space, and if there's anything else you need, please feel free to reach out. We're moving from, reactively reacting to strandings to proactively wānanga, having wānanga with whānau, so that we don't have to, always be on the, back end of it all. So we've had a series of wānanga around the motu in the last couple of years where, if you want to, just reach out. But ngā mihi anō, kia koutou.
Tēnā koe, JC. Thank you. Hone.
Tēnā ra koutou. Ko reitini te tipua, ko reitini te taniwha, ko reitini te tangata, ko te tohora tērā, I takoto mai wharikauri, tēnā ra koutou. My name is Hone Tipana Tibu. I'm just fortunate enough to be living on Wharikauri with your fellows Ngāti Mutunga Relations, and I'm the Operations Manager for Ngāti Mutunga Wharikauri We Trust. We're in a similar space looking at bringing in tikanga and kawa. I've been fortunate enough to be involved in 4 strandings, 300 pilot whales last year, 180 here on 120, 30 odd here on Wharikauri on the western side at Wānanga, and another 160 odd over at Pitt Island, Te Rangi Odia, as well as some pilot whales along here on the Waitangi Beach, where we were unsuccessful and we wanted to revive them. We had to euthanize them, and then we had them taking them back up to the moana, out to the ocean to rejoin their whānau. And then 1 sperm whale along Ocean Beach. So really pleased to be able to share that whakaaro with you guys. I'm really interested to see the details on the 1,000+ whale strandings here on Wharikauri. Pilot whales are quite common here on Wharikauri, also known as blackfish. Obviously smaller whale, and in most instances our main approach is if we can't refloat them within a specified short period of time, then they're euthanized alongside with our mates at dock. It became quite a trying process last year when there were so many stranded, but it's a process that we will probably maintain because we don't have the resources and everyone else. I must do a big mihi a te oko sa Ngāti Wai, ko te karawa rangatira tērā o ngā mai hauhaki hori parata, e mihi ana, ko te wā tērā mo te waka tohora rautene, e tōna mahi e whakaitia tērā. So Hori was involved in the sperm whale strategy here and for rautene. Te hoa. But the challenges here is the isolation. So we have our first wānanga coming up on the 18th of this month with our people to start putting in some kawa and tikanga and upgrading what we've done in the past. Much of our work has been the recovery of bone, where many whānau on the island have access to in the past. Recently, because of the settlements, it's the relationship is between us and Doc and the Mururi, our whanaungas up the hill. So yeah, really excited what you guys are doing in Taranaki Rohe, and thank you for allowing us to come in tonight's week in Wānanga.
Kia ora, we look forward to sharing mātauranga back and forth. I think that'll be a great relationship for us to continue building and sharing that mātauranga together. Was there anyone else that wanted to ask a pātai or share anything? We've got about 5 minutes. Ka pai, Jasmine.
Kia ora koutou. E whakaaro. I think having a set protocol, that's cool, good plan. But I also think sometimes there are different circumstances where a set protocol may not fit. There might be something that's happening, you know, with the people, with our whāia, something like that, where we would be better off doing something different in that particular circumstance rather than following set protocol. Kia ora.
And I think that's the beauty of being able to wānanga about these things before we go and do anything, is that we check in with each other and see how everyone is doing and where everyone's whakaaro is at that particular time, and then we respond accordingly. So I think that's an important thing to have in the plan, is having that flexibility to be able to adapt when we need to. Ka pai. Thank you. He pātai anō? Teresa.
Oh, kia ora koutou. I was just after listening to Hone, when I was over there recently, I was talking to a whānau where there was one of the blackfish strandings, and they were talking about the trauma that they had afterwards. So after the dock person came down and had to organise having them euthanised and then went home, but the ongoing trauma that they had, I was wondering about the aftercare for the people that are involved, you know, the whānau that are involved in those strandings, if there's something put in place for them, for that, you know, the aftercare aspects.
I think Ngāhina touched on it quite well when he talked about continuing to maintain that relationship and that bond, but I'll let him talk to that.
Yeah, kia ora, Teresa. I suppose ours may have been a little bit different to you know what happened over at Parekodi with the sheer amount of whales that came ashore. But for us, we've found our monthly catch-ups a way of healing, a way of growing together, and we quite openly share our thoughts and our feelings towards the whole process, which has been, as I mentioned before, it's hard to even put it into words, to be honest, but it's been transformational in terms of our growth, all of our growth and our as a collective. So we've found that we have a rā every month, and that's been amazing for us. And it's just all low key, it's not planned out, like it's just rock up, kaitahi, kōrero, be present with our tipua and just kōrero. You know, it doesn't need to be anything big, flash and organised, but we've found that works for us. So.
Which leads us into what are we going to do from here? So we want you to mull over your questions, your pātai, your aspirations for the next week or so. We do have an in-person wānanga booked at the pā for the 22nd of April. And we would love for you all to come along and attend if you're able to. Send us your feedback, your kōrero, or your aspirations via email or phone call through to the tari. But we're going to have 2 wānanga to follow up from this online one. So the next one will be where we go in depth in terms of the experience of our Taranaki iwi whānau, and also our experience within Ngāti Mutunga as well. And we'll start developing the plan. And then the 13th of May, we're looking at having a really active session. So that one will have a more practical aspect, and we want to be able to offer whānau the chance to learn how to refloat a stranded marine mammal, and also what's the practical mahi involved in that type of thing. So if you do want to get in touch with us, we're really thankful and appreciate that you've come in and joined us this evening. We've loved sharing kōrero and hearing from you all. Keep an eye out for our in-person wānanga, so the 22nd of April and the 13th of May. And then just follow us on Facebook. So Ricky's really amazing at sharing all our pānui through our e-pānui and through our Facebook page. So making sure everyone's up to date on everything Ngāti Mutunga. And then if you do want to get in touch with us, just flick us an email, office@ngatimutunga.iwi.nz. Our phone number's never changed, 7523 or DM us on Facebook, and the team will get in touch with you and let you know pretty quickly any answers to your pātai. But other than that, whānau, we just want to thank you for watching. Mā te wā, tō tātou karakia. Actually, before we close up, I'll just check in with Ngāhina and Cameron if there's anything else that you'd like to share before we jump off this evening.
No, ka pai from me. Just really good to see everybody. Really looking forward to catching up with the next few wānanga. Hope you enjoyed the night, and yeah, ka kite.
Right.
And yeah, just from me, I think for the future Wānanga would be to have a bit of a session on what actually is involved in euthanasia. And also we can definitely get some people in to talk on how to actually, what the process is for refloating a whale and the considerations there. But yeah, otherwise that's all from me. Thank you.
Ka pai. Well, ngā mihi e te iwi, tō tātou karakia whakamutunga, unuhia ki te urutapu nui, kia wātea, kia māma, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairua i te ara takatū. Koia rā e rongo wakaere ake ki runga, tūturu wakamaua kia tina, hui e, tāe ki e. Pōmarie e te iwi, and we will see you where the sun always shines at Ngāti Mutunga on the 22nd of April. Pōmarie.
Marie whānau. Ka kite.
Pōmarie.
Pōmarie.
Ko Marie wānau.
Ai, ka kite.